Welcome. It is the fourth webinar that OTC is hosting, and it's lovely to have all of you joining us. Remember that we have a chat option and we have a Q&A option. In the chat option, you can talk to someone, you can tell us improvements, you can just have normal chats. In the Q&A, as our speakers are talking and you have questions that you would like to ask, please pop that for us into the Q&A section. We would love to hear your questions. We are trying to answer all of them live, and if there's not time, we will definitely make sure we get all the questions that you've asked back to you. We've had 3 webinars already. Webinar 1 was the potential of future gas sources in South Africa. Then we went a little bit more detail and looked at what is available within South Africa. And when will it be available? And then the third one, we started to look at cost and how much will it cost us to bring natural gas or LPG into our businesses. But today we are focusing much more on practical examples where natural gas has been used to power progress in South Africa. So we have 3 real-life examples that we want to share with you. Practical examples and case studies, as well as lessons learned from these projects. Without further ado, I have the privilege to introduce my colleague, Mr. Charles Buys, to you. Now, Charles is going to talk about converting a mine from diesel to LNG. Now, Charles is one of our founding members of OTC. He's one of our directors of OTC. He started off with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. He has an MBI, but he is so much more. He has 40 years business experience, 17 years operating experience, 10 years experience design and executing of major capital projects, 9 years experience in shaping and planning of major capital projects. Vast experience, and very excited to hear what he can share with us today as well. Without further ado, Charles is going to talk about converting a mine from diesel to LNG. Thank you, Charles.
Everything working now. I'm so glad to hear that. Good morning, everybody. And natural gas powering progress, as Wilmina said, I think is important to reflect a little bit of what has been done and real case studies that has been done in Southern Africa. So replacing diesel with the LNG in a remote mine, Northern Cape, what happened there? But before I start, just remember, the data cannot be guaranteed. This is public domain information, and you have to verify independently before you use the information. On the mine as it is today, they have a 1 megawatt distribution system, 5 generators, one 500, two 200, and 100 kilowatt generator. Diesel comes in every 5 days in a tanker, bringing in about 2.2 million liters per annum. That's distributed with Bowser to the various generators on the mine, and the system is working. But the diesel cost at 0.25 liters per kilowatt hour gives you roughly 5,500 or more than 5,500 tons of CO2 per year. And at the price of 22 Rand per liter, it costs nearly 50 million Rand per annum to run that system. You want to change that over to LNG, it will mean bringing in an isotainer every 5 days, roughly 1,500 tons per annum of LNG. They will have to buy 5 new machines, exactly the same size, 500 to 200 and 100, to distribute the system as it is today. An LNG vaporizer has to be installed, and a low pressure distribution system, which then will negate the problem of traveling and Bowser operation all the time. Now, what's the price of the LNG that they will be able to land it? And Petrus will talk about that and give us much more detail on it. But just roughly, if you buy LNG in Europe for $7 per gigajoule, and you look at all of the costs, port handling, port charges, freight, container rental, the whole lot, you'll be able to land it here in South Africa at about 350 Rand per gigajoule or $19. And in today's money, might be able to buy it quite cheaper at Renergen at this stage of the game. And if the other potential LNG suppliers in the country come online one of these days, it should be cheaper buying from them as well. LNG cost with a heat rate of 8,800 kilojoules per kilowatt hour will give you roughly 2,200 tons per annum CO2 production. And at the 350 Rand, it will cost 25 million per annum. So comparing the two systems, diesel versus LNG, you will have a direct fuel savings of more than 20 million, close on 24 million Rand per annum, plus a CO2 reduction of 1,500 tons per annum with the associated carbon tax savings that you will get. In other words, comparing the direct generating cost, variable cost of the three potentially alternative sources of energy, diesel at 5 Rand 60 per kilowatt hour, LNG at 2 Rand 90 per kilowatt hour. And if you're so lucky to sit right on the pipeline, you'll be able to generate that at roughly 1 Rand 20 per kilowatt hour. But to change the mine over, they would have had to buy the 5 machines and install the vaporizer and distribution system. So looking at the capital, for them, it would have cost about 18.5 million Rand plus the installation cost, giving you 24 million capital outlay and a payback of roughly 13 months. But if you are cash strapped and you cannot generate that amount of capital to do the conversion for that size of mine, putting in dual fuel kits will cost roughly 1.1 million Rand for the mine, plus installation costs giving, say, 1.3 to 1.5 million Rand. And a dual fuel, in the dual fuel conversion, it will save 50 to 70% of the diesel costs and a payback of less than a quarter. That sounds absolutely excellent. So the question really to ask after having done this very practical case study on the mine is, why so slow to convert? Thank you, Pumin, and over to you.
Thank you, Charles. Short but sweet and direct to the point. This almost sounds too good to be true, but it is true. And definitely a wonderful case study, an example of how we can get away from diesel, have less CO2, spend a little bit of money, but much better payback at the end of the day. Our next speaker will be Andre Higu. Andre was involved in developing the Mozambique natural gas transmission pipeline tariff mechanisms at Sasol Gas. He's also a founding member and the CEO of Novo Energy, the first commercial natural gas vehicles and compressed natural gas company. Andre holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and an honors degree in technology management. Now today, Andre is going to talk to us about the conversion of the Calvin power station to LNG. Thank you, Andre.
Yes, good morning. I'm going to give you a quick overview of a case study in conversion rebuild of a utility scale gas to power station using small-scale LNG and using Kelvin power as an example. Just quickly as an introduction about Nova Energy, we are integrated gas trader with integrated supply chain, and in essence it means that we active across the full gas value chain. So first of all, we've got a fairly large portfolio of gas sources that includes pipeline gas and in future also LNG, Mozambican onshore gas, and then also some of our own gas assets. We've got interest in a biogenic gas asset adjacent to Renergen D3, actively drilling, hopefully to get gas to market quite soon. So what Nova really does, we developed a very integrated supply chain that includes the distribution of gas via pipelines, compressed natural gas, and in future LNG as well. We also on the market side quite good at developing gas markets. We're quite unique in the sense that we entered the gas market where there was quite a lot of constraints on gas supply. So we had to be very innovative on finding more gas and also developing alternative distribution mechanisms. You can see the complexity that develops in an integrated and portfolio approach. Just getting to quickly on Kelvin power. Just a disclaimer as well. I mean, this doesn't represent Kelvin. But Nova has got several customers with very serious interest in gas to power solutions. So Kelvin is a 1957 power station, a very old power station. You would have seen it in Kempton Park on your way to Sandton on the Gautrain. It's a NERSA licensed coal-fired power station on a power purchase agreement with the City Power of Johannesburg. Quite unique in being an IPP supplying to a municipality. So it's a nameplate 600 megawatt. Station B's got about 360 megawatt. Very low efficiencies at this stage. It's a very important power station because it provides grid stabilization for the city. It's a brownfield case study, so quite unique in that sense. And also it's an inland power station, which adds some of the complexities if you want to go gas. Kelvin is end of life, and rebuilding Kelvin is quite an important priority for the owners of that asset. So the challenge that you face when you start looking at Kelvin is that you need to have an integrated approach. So Nova's experience in operating in an integrated environment equipped us quite well to actually pursue this feasibility study. So first of all, on the gas supplier side, obviously making sure where's the gas going to come from, is there sufficient volumes, gas security, when the gas will be available. And obviously second leg is how do you get the gas there, how do you handle that? Is it pipes, road, rail, third-party access on other pipelines? And then on the power configuration side, what is the optimal station to build from a commercial, financial, technical, environmental, etc. So quite a complex problem statement that we had to address. So the methodology that we followed, we were fortunate to engage the US Trade Development Agency just around COVID, and we put together quite a comprehensive feasibility study on this. We've since updated the study recently, but in the study we looked at regulatory aspects, market economics, gas infrastructure, PPAs, contract structures, financial models, etc. So almost a bankable feasibility study. Specialist studies on environmental aspects, for instance. So went out to market, expression of interests, gas supply, logistics, power equipment, NERSA, a lot of interaction with Transnet, IPP office, etc. So we believe the most comprehensive feasibility study done on a integrated gas to power station in South Africa. So the first problem we had to solve was, where's the gas going to come from? So we interrogated the potential opportunities, whether it's coalbed methane from Mozambique, Botswana, indigenous gas, Renergen, Biogenics, imported LNG, pipeline gas, additional pipeline gas, and that gave us a very complex logistics permutations on how do you get the gas there, whether on pipeline, road, rail, liquid gas, compressed gas, permutations of that, and then how do you finally actually get it to the power station. You can understand complexities of getting liquid gas from coastal areas into Kelvin. And secondly, we had a look at the power generation configurations. We settled finally on a GTA combined cycle. At altitude, we could efficiencies between 50 to 64%. Efficiency is very important because that obviously drives the price. And the GTAs also give you other benefits. They're robust, they're scalable, you can phase them. So for this study, in this particular model, we looked at a 450 megawatt, 2-by-1 configuration, 2 gas, 1 steam, and a lot of inputs from the OEMs and technology engineering suppliers. So some of the interesting results that came out, you would be familiar with the pipeline infrastructure, ROMCO, the other pipelines. So if you zoom in a bit, ROMCO running into Secunda, and then the SSP, Secunda Springs pipeline, and Kelvin right at the end of that spur. And the challenge was that Kelvin ended up, the pipeline running past Kelvin is a 6-inch, quite an old pipeline. So very early, we started having doubts about the ability to actually move gas into Kelvin on pipeline, just because from a technical point of view, but also a financial and commercial considerations, encroachment on the pipe network, as well as upgrades required, and trying to push the gas all from the back end from the coast to the end of the network. If you look at some of the estimates, these are some recent estimates. Looking at a scenario from a BGC terminal fees, plus all the tariffs on pipeline, you probably end up around a total tolling charge of between $7 to $10. So that's just the cost to actually move the gas from the coast inland. We then realized that the most feasible solution would be a small-scale LNG solution. And the basic concept of the solution was that from an imported terminal, having gas on wheels into inland storage terminals, or gas hubs as we call them, and then final delivery into Kelvin on a regas, on a pipeline, or even on a shuttle road service. Plus, we design a backup virtual pipeline directly from coast into Kelvin. And the reason for that, this is a simulation of, this is a 600 megawatt simulation, but just to explain the concept. So you've got storage levels on site of liquid gas, and as you start drawing down, your levels will fall down. Your delivery cycles on a small scale solution, you can see that. And then in this simulation that was done, it was a continuous operation of the 600 megawatt. You can see you start drawing down on your storage. So we actually filled the gap into a road transport backup solution. So in this scenario, it gives us, I think this is 3 days for this one storage. And there's three backup storage systems in this design. It's actually 9 days of continuous operation of a 600 megawatt power station inland. The other insight we've gained is that the actual cost structure of small-scale energy far outweighs the cost of pipeline. We ended up being able to model and design small-scale energy delivery systems in the $5 to $7 range, which is quite a lot more affordable than pipelines. So just in conclusion, perhaps one of the interesting insights is that we've proven that if you follow an integrated approach to gas to power, LNG, from port to power station, you can actually prove that it's feasible to run a base load gas to power on small scale LNG. This is just the delivery costs. Typically, landed LNG, $9 to $11, $8 to $12 for small scale solution. Efficiencies, exchange rates, returns on investment on the power side. And on this graph, you can see the historic Eskom average tariff, currently around R1.85. If you forecast the moving average, that's a trend line. Back in 2022, we actually forecasted that point, the current point, to be R1.76. It ended up at R1.85. So we're very confident on our modeling to actually forecast that. And that gives you a cost of power around R2.50 to R2.80, which is, Charles, I think your number is also in line with that. So that shows that there's definitely a feasibility range where you can make small-scale LNG baseload gas to power inland work at R2.50, forecasted at time of operation, well within range to actually make it work. So this is a proof that even inland you can do power generation using small-scale LNG. One addition of the study was to look at the market economics. So we generated the GIS, 15,000 customers. This heat map just shows you where all the energy users in South Africa are. This is just Gauteng, KZN, Mpumalanga. A massive potential market, hundreds of petajoules of gas. And we've also started seeing a new energy ecosystem where thermal and power integration embedded in generation, a very large demand. So out of this, Novus then actually proceeded to develop our first LNG inland terminal. We've received environmental authorization for a terminal, 500,000 tons, 500,000 tons of LNG per annum throughput. It's based on our existing compressed natural gas operation. It's just a picture of an 18-bay CNG operation, and then an integration of the onto our CNG operation, LNG storage, rail infrastructure. The site is easily accessible from Matola, Kucha, and Richards Bay. Surrounding customer base, potential for large evacuation of power on the site as well. We're very bullish about the future of LNG, especially small-scale energy. And I think matching this with our existing operational capability of gas on wheels and moving gas around, very excited about the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre. I really loved where you said you interrogated opportunities where the gas can come from. And it shows me what detailed study you've done, you and your team, to be able to get there. I'm definitely going to use that strategy when I have to interrogate options for what we are using for. And it's so positive for me, because often industries are scared of change. I normally say one change leads to another. But you guys has closed the loop on that and you've changed, and it actually had so many benefits. Thank you for that. Very interesting to have learned of that too. Last but not least is our next speaker, my new colleague, Mr. Petrus Scholtz. Petrus is a graduate chemical engineer with over 35 years of experience, where in the fertilizer industry, refinery, production planning, process engineering, project management. He worked at Sasol Fields and an FFS refineries. He was responsible for raw material procurement from the industry, marketing, sales, technology. Petrus, it feels to me this experience stretched quite wide. He has extensive experience with LNG, and he championed the first successful South African trials on small-scale LNG imports. I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons. With that, Petrus is going to talk about transitioning from LPG to LNG, our dark story. If I'm not mistaken, Petrus, our dark, it's a previous console, but you'll correct me if I'm wrong. With that, over to Petrus.
I think it's all up and running. Okay, thank you very much for those kind words. Just confirm that you're hearing me, Philomene?
Everything looks perfect, Petrus.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, first of all, the Ardagh, it's an Irish company. So the pronunciation of I was told it is Ardagh, something like that, falls quite heavily on the Afrikaner tongue. So please forgive me if I don't pronounce it absolutely correctly. As Charles has also done, the disclaimer, and basically it just says that, we've been negotiating and talking to the management team of Ardagh, as well as the project management team. We've looked at the data available on the public domain, and also turned into the owner team consultation information. So it's as accurate as we believe we can get it, but please confirm everything independently again before you use it. So who is Ardagh? Well, before I start with that, just a quick note. I'm going to refer to LPG and LNG, even though they are liquid products, as if they are gasified in the discussion. All transport and storage will be in liquid phase, but to say gasified LPG, gasified LNG every time is a bit boring, so we'll just refer to LNG and LPG. So the Ardagh group of companies is an international producer of metal and glass packaging. They've got 59 production facilities in 16 countries, and they employ plus minus 19,000 people. So it's a sizable company. The annual sales are plus minus $9.1 billion. That is serious. They acquired the Consol Glass facilities in 2022, and that included all the South African, the Kenyan, Nigerian, and Ethiopian facilities as well. The modern South African facilities are in Nigel, where they've got 3 pipeline gas-fired furnaces, Clayville with 4 pipeline gas-fired furnaces, and Wadeville with 2 pipeline gas furnaces. In Bellville, they've got a facility with 4 oil-fired furnaces. Just because you can't get gas or couldn't get gas here in the past, they had to rely on fuel oil. The forwards and the conditioning and all of that was traditionally done with LPG only. The 2 East African furnaces in Ethiopia and Kenya, they are also operating on fuel oil, and the Nigerian furnace runs either on LNG or pipeline gas, depending on what's available at the time. They do have challenges with their supply on that side. In South Africa, Ardagh is the largest supplier of glass containers on the African continent. They have 9 furnaces in the Johannesburg area, all using pipeline gas for melting, conditioning, and annealing. And their competition has got only 3 gas-fired furnaces in South Africa. PFG, doing flat glass, has 2 pipeline gas-fired furnaces. All this pipeline gas is supplied via the same pipeline and from the same source. It is quite clear that gas is the preferred fuel of choice for glass furnaces, but because it's not available in Bellville, they can't use it at the moment. All 4 of the South African Ardagh production facilities are also fitted with ESPs, and this allows them more freedom and fuel choice while not putting their air quality standards into jeopardy. So if we look at the LPG uses in Bellville, LPG used to be the only suitable fuel available for glass conditioning and annealing in Bellville. The LPG they used is produced by the South African refineries, the oil refineries, and volumes are supplemented by imports. During the 2019 and 2020 COVID period, the refineries went into low production mode, some closed down, and LPG imports was really difficult during that period. Internationally, everything closed down, and there just wasn't any movement. This presented Consol with a huge potential problem should they run out of LPG. Remember, it was still Consol in those days. Their furnaces in Bellville can have up to 500 tons of molten glass per furnace at any point in time. So to have that unit running out of gas and shutting down is a major, major concern, and it's not a consideration. So a strategic decision was made to find an alternative gas fuel supply to supplement or to replace LPG. At this stage, Renergen started to produce, and they were the only local producer of LNG in South Africa. However, due to the initial startup challenges, the LNG production was somewhat intermittent. However, an agreement was still reached with Renergen to supply LNG to Bellville, and due to the intermittent nature of the supply, to also build and fund the required storage and reticulation facilities. Consol at the time agreed to pay for the installation as an additional levy over a period of time, just to make it a bit easier to get into the system and to use the product. So 2 bundle tanks with offloading facilities, evaporators, and the necessary ancillary equipment were installed by Renergen. They also supplied additional foundations for future increased storage capacity when needed. Here you can see the facility with the storage tank, LNG storage tank, a blending facility at the bottom, and the evaporator on the side. Due to the potential intermittent LNG supply, it was necessary to design the system to allow for LNG and LPG to be interchanged without causing process disruptions. A blending station to allow for the LNG and the LPG to be switched at will was also included in the design. However, the different properties of the two gases, such as the density, the flame speed, the CV, made it very difficult to use these two gases together. If you just blend them as is, you will have a continuously changing density, changing flame speed, changing CV. You can't set the burners all the time for those changing conditions. So the burners were actually retrofitted to run on a regasified LNG, meaning that the LPG had to be modified to make it suitable for this application. So if we look at the properties of LNG and LPG, main component of LNG, natural gas, is 95% methane, approximately. LPG is a propane-butane mix. Sometimes we only get propane in South Africa. The specific gravity of the natural gas is 0.55 and 1.52 with LPG, significant difference. The high heating value of natural gas, 39 megajoules per cubic meter compared to 93. Flame temperatures are very much the same. And then the Wobbe index, which I'll talk about a bit later, is also quite different, 48 to 55 on the natural gas and 75 to 87 on the LPG. So it's very obvious that these two products are vastly different and just can't be blended together as is. Excuse me. So here the Wobbe index comes into play. The Wobbe index is a corrected, calculated heating value, taking the density of the gas into consideration as well. So the Wobbe index allows the interchangeability of different gases to be measured. This is calculated as a higher heating value divided by the square root of the specific gravity. LPG has a much higher Wobbe index, as you can see on this graph of this table as well, 2015 to 2320, compared to that of natural gas of 1290 to 1475 BTU per scf, or you see the numbers there in megajoule per cubic meter. So LPG and LNG clearly not interchangeable without burner gas modification, unless we can match the Wobbe indexes in a different manner. In order to make the LPG fully interchangeable with the LNG, it needs to be modified and have a similar Wobbe index. An LPG air blending station was then introduced, into the design, and that will produce what they call a synthetic natural gas. That could be blended to the desired Wobbe index, and then you can get it that as a side stream to blend into the LNG directly. So the synthetic natural gas is produced by LPG, vaporized LPG, and that is then added into compressed air, which has been dried and filtered via 2 control valves into a mixing chamber to produce your synthetic natural gas. A typical blend in this case will be about 55% propane to 45% air. And this physical dilution lowers the calorific value and the specific gravity of the mixed LPG to the SNG. And that makes it then suitable. You can control this blend very, very well. It's a very easy way of controlling it, and you can get the Wobbe index controlled to a very, very tight specification. The current setup is to do a Wobbe index of about 48 to 55 to match that of the LNG. Because there's no reforming chemistry involved, the LPG air mixing stations, like I've got here, are very compact. Come on. They can start and stop within minutes, and they are widely used as peak shaving or emergency backup systems where natural gas supply is limited. This is a very neat, handy solution to actually a big problem. Sorry, I've got finger problems. If you look at the final project, it took about 9 months to complete. 3 months of that was spent on civils and 6 months on the installation. A fair amount of this installation time, however, has been due to waiting for long delivering cryogenic equipment, not so easily available everywhere in South Africa. And after about a month of commissioning and normal startup fine-tuning, the Bellville facility is now running seamlessly on LNG and LPG in various blend configurations as is required at any time. The total cost of the ownership was quite a bit of an interesting one. The LNG solution is definitely not more economical than running on LPG at this point in time. It's partially due to the conversion having had a lot of teething challenges, costs, and complexities. However, it has given Ardeur flexibility and risk reduction. And so this is risk reduction has been required for continuous uninterrupted glass production, and they've succeeded in doing that. It's also been proven that the LNG can be successfully transported over long distances in containers. In this case, the Virginia to Bellville route is about 1,400 kilometers. So having proven this as well, it allows for LNG once more available in South Africa to be supplied to almost any facility right throughout the country. As it is, several of the Imperial trucks dedicated to Ardeur has also been subsequently successfully converted to LNG dual fuel. So this is really a success story, and it's finding its way to other industries as well. Finally, I would just like to give acknowledgement to the Ardeur management team for the open and the cordial discussions around the LNG project, and allowing us to use that experience to showcase this successful changeover. Hopefully, this is also a learning to others who are contemplating such a move. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Petrus. Yes, what a neat solution that makes it work. And change is not necessarily always a scary thing. Just put the right engineer on the job and you are ready to go. With that, we are at the end of all the speakers. They've all gained time. Well done. I really appreciate all the effort that Andri, Charles, Petrus, all the effort that you've put in, all the testing we've done before, and all the time that you've made available for us to present on this webinar. Our next webinar will be on the 10th of June, the 5th webinar in the series. There we're going to focus on methane-rich versus natural gas. We will look at the differences between the two, the implications for the end user if they would like to convert. in the future. With that, the presentation part of the webinar is finished.